Welcome back, everyone, to the Tango Banter. I am Yelizaveta. It's good to have you here with me today. Before we launch into today's topic, I wanted to give you a heads up that I will be traveling to Valentango Tango Festival in the next few weeks. It's happening February 14th through 19th. It's in Portland, Oregon. If you have never been to Valentango, I highly recommend you check it out. Valentango is actually really special to me as a dancer because when I was first moving to Portland in 2014, it was the first big event that I attended. And back then I was a very different person in a very different state of mind, different place in life. And it's been 10 years and I am coming back to Valentango in 2024 and I will be one of the DJs. So I'm DJing on Thursday night as well as Saturday afternoon. I'm doing an alt set, which I think would be really fun. If you are there, I would love to connect with you. So make sure you check it out. I am linking the event in the show notes if you want to go check out the details. So today we're delving into a topic that's really as nuanced as the dance itself. Why you might find yourself not wanting to dance with someone anymore. We all experience it, and I think for the most part, we all feel embarrassed about feeling that way. I don't know whether it's the same for men and women. It's been my observation that I find women to have more guilt about this than men. And please let me know if I'm wrong on this. I feel like the conversations I've had in the past about situations like this, it's typically with women who don't know what to do and they feel really guilty about someone that's in their circle of friends who they used to dance with a lot and they just don't want to anymore. And a lot of times they're kind of caught in between this question of should they go ahead and do it because there's this history of dancing with that person. And of course, they don't want to make them feel bad or hurt their feelings. Or should they just listen to their own sort of preferences and not dance with them? And I think we end up doing a mixture of both. Like there's a little bit of, okay, fine, I'll make a concession here and there. And also, I think we come up with ways of escaping the capaseo with those people. We have our strategies of timing our exits a certain way or sitting ourselves in the room in a particular place or seeking out escape by going to the bathroom. Like we come up with ways to reduce the chances of capaceo with certain people. So I thought I would talk about this and share just some of my own ways of thinking and some of the strategies I've adopted as a way of helping me stay level-headed and sane sometimes, because there can be so much drama associated with this feeling of some sort of disconnect with certain people in the community. And I've been on the tango scene, in the tango community for long enough to have had my own share of these situations. And I definitely don't think I have it figured out. Don't get me wrong. I'm not pretending that I have the answers at all, but I guess because I've been through this quite a few times and have dealt with some of these emotions, I just kind of came up with strategies of talking myself through it when it happens. And it's very much a work in progress. And I would love to hear from you If you have any instances where you had insights about these kinds of situations, or something that really worked for you to turn things around for yourself, if you had a lot of guilt having to do with this kind of experience. So you can reach out to me through email at connect@imsotango.com, or reach me on social media at imsotango. I'm so tango. I really love hearing from you guys. And you can also check out, typically now if you're listening on Spotify, I include a little question at the end that has to do with the topic of the episode. And I love hearing your insights and opinions. So make sure you check that out. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you, of course, are always welcome to comment in the notes below. So I want to talk first about kind of like the two main reasons why we stop dancing with somebody, or I should say, why we stop liking dancing with somebody, because there's other reasons like geographical location change, or, something shifts and the person's not there and you can't dance with them. But if you're at the Milonga and you're in the scene long enough that there's certain people that you started out really connecting with and got really close to and used to dance a lot with, and then something changes and you find yourself in a situation where it's completely the opposite of that. You never dance with this person and you hardly ever talk to them. I think in broad strokes, there are two main reasons why this might be happening. On the one hand, it's the interpersonal reasons, and the other one is going to be more technical reasons. With the more like interpersonal one, I'll start with that one because that one's the trickier one. I think it's a little bit more ambiguous when you're dealing with emotions and feelings and relationships that form off the dance floor. And there's not really a right way to do it. But I think it helps to just recognize that these kinds of things will happen. So a very common scenario that I've gone through many times, and I know many other people, many other dancers have gone through as well, is when you bond with somebody who's a dancer and you become close friends, and you spend a lot of time together, you're sort of hanging out with the same people, and there's this friendship that develops. And then something happens on an interpersonal level, and you don't want to spend time with that person anymore, and you don't want to talk to them. Maybe it's an actual conflict. Maybe you disagree with something, their behavior, or you got to know them deep enough that something happened where you're kind of like not interested in having a relationship with them anymore. Or that's kind of an acute situation. Those are kind of like the most painful ones. They're the most frustrating ones because they always feel like, why is this happening? Where did we go wrong? Sometimes it takes a while to find your peace with it. So those are sort of like the most intense ones. Then there's those kinds of issues where you drift apart from somebody just through kind of hanging out with different people. Like I've noticed for me, that's happened a number of times where I just change, something in my life changes, or there's a new Milonga that opens up, or something about my schedule changes, and now I'm not seeing the same people, and I end up connecting with different people. And before I know it, it's like I'm in a completely different group of friends, and I'm not hanging out with the same group that I used to. So that's another example where it can happen, and you wonder whether it's your fault, or does that mean you're a bad friend, that you're not dancing with somebody anymore, you're not spending time with them anymore. And each situation is going to be slightly different for everyone, but I would say those are the second most common scenario I hear about is more of this sort of general, gradual unfriending that happens. So it can be happening over time, like over months and years, or it can happen in a shorter period of time. But there's typically this emotional friendship component. Sometimes there's a relationship that can happen. And I've talked a lot about that there can be an actual like romantic relationship that breaks apart. And then you are in the same community, but you're sort of you've gone from this place of like really being really intimate with this person, and now you're not even acknowledging their presence. Like that is a common scenario in tango. So that's going to be on the side of more emotional, interpersonal reasons why you might stop wanting to dance with somebody. Then there's also the technical side of things, right? So a very common scenario that happened for me right away within months of starting tango is that when I was a beginner dancer, I danced with certain people in the community, and then I progressed and my level exceeded then some of the dancers that initially were my most typical partners at a milonga. So I started dancing with different people, and then my preferences shifted. And of course, there is that place where you start out in tango and you feel like, oh my God, this person's so good and they know so much. And then you get better and better. And then all of a sudden you realize you're better than the person that you were admiring. That happens a lot. And that's a very common reason why certain followers stop wanting to dance with certain leaders, because let's face it, there's a lot of leaders always in every community that are going to be of the same level regardless. They're kind of at a plateau. They're not interested in taking classes. This is the way they dance, and they're always going to dance that way. So for some followers, they might experience that dance when they're coming in, and then they get better and better, and they get experiences dancing with higher and higher level dancers. And for some, that will make a difference in whether they want to dance with the same dancers that they used to when they first started. And it's something that happens to everyone, I think, to at least a little degree, where you kind of find yourself that technically you've surpassed someone and you're interested in dancing with more technically proficient dancers. Again, it's going to be really personal. And even as I'm talking about it, I can sense the judgment that we might have of ourselves or of someone else who chooses not to dance with someone for technical reasons like that. I think there's a value that we uphold as a community where we say things like, it doesn't matter what the level is, we should dance with everyone. How are you going to get better? The way you get better is by dancing with more advanced dancers, right? So advanced dancers should be dancing with, less advanced dancers. And there's a lot of focus on charity, I think, overall, for good reasons, because I think we're all looking for ways to solve the issue of people not getting dances. And I'm not negating any of that. However, the reality, the way things really unfold over time, is that this is how people evolve. And regardless whether they think they should be feeling a certain way or not, I know it's happened many times for me along the journey where I started rejecting capaceos from certain people because I just did not feel like I wanted to dance with them anymore. Sometimes it was technical. There might be something that I used to like about them. There was something about our connection that was pleasurable and it worked. And then something changed. And, it can happen in different contexts. Like, for example, I remember I was dancing with someone that I love dancing with this woman. She's an amazing follower, and she's kind of been sort of rising through the ranks for a while. And she has been taking a lot of classes and studying tango. And so she really got really good very quickly. And so I love dancing with her. But then one time, some months ago, I took the embrace, and there was something very different about her embrace than before. And I could tell it was because of the classes she's been taking. And there was something very specific about her technique that was a little bit more, I don't know, a little different, a little bit more stylized. And as I took the embrace, I was like, oh my gosh, wow, I don't like that. I really don't like this embrace. And I thought to myself, wow, if this is how this person dances from now on, I don't think I want to dance with them anymore. Or I might be more careful as to what I choose because I did not enjoy it as much. And again, I think it's hard not to take that personally. Like if I told her that straight up and I gave her that feedback, that might not feel good to her. She might think she's doing something wrong. And I think that's what we're afraid of. We're afraid of feeling that. We're afraid of feeling that we're not measuring up some way. But then we also are afraid of causing someone else to feel that way. And I think for a lot of women, that's kind of like a place that we go to, is that we really don't want someone else to feel bad about themselves, about their dance. And I think that the conflict there emotionally, psychologically, that's just something we will have to deal with as we keep going in tango. It's not like we're going to find a formula to deal with these situations and know what to do or successfully prevent them from happening too. Like, it doesn't really need to be that acute. We don't need to stop it from occurring, but to just have our eyes open to that this is something that does happen, and it's okay when it happens, because along with these experiences of like changing who you like to dance with, you might go through these periods of sort of letting go of certain dance experiences, letting go of dancers for different reasons. But at the same time, you're opening up to other connections, and you might be experiencing the reverse of that as well, which is really exciting, because once I really started recognizing that, yes, there's this sort of state of kind of letting go and losing some of the connections. At the same time, there's always a possibility of connecting with new people or reconnecting with somebody as well. So that's also happened quite a few times, where whether because of personal reasons or technical reasons, I actually chose to reconnect with somebody or connect with somebody for the first time. And that's happened to me as well. So when it comes to like interpersonal reasons that cause you to not dance with somebody, it doesn't mean that it's forever. And it doesn't mean that this person is completely gone from your life. There might be a time when you do reconnect, and it will be different. And maybe it's going to be a different type of relationship on different terms. The friendship might take a different form. So that does happen. And I've had that happen in my life several times. And then on the technical side, it's really interesting. Sometimes there are dancers in the community that I sort of watch from the sidelines, and I see them dancing, and I'll kind of have a judgment of like, okay, they're at this level, and so a lot of times I'm like, okay, there's the beginners. There's a beginner leader, there's a beginner follower. I can kind of see it. And the other day at a milonga, I was watching somebody, and I had watched them dancing for many, many months. I've known this person for a long time. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, they've gotten better. wow, look at that. And like you could tell, they could tell that there was something different about their technique and their movement. And so I capaceoed them. I did. It was, to me, it was like, oh, I want to give this person a try. So, so that is going on at the same time that we're sort of negotiating not wanting to dance with somebody. And I think ultimately what's helped me to not get too carried away with wondering how the other person's feeling or whether I really hurt their feelings, and is there, are they forever traumatized? Are they going to leave tango and never come back? Like, for me to not go that direction, I just choose to focus on this other side and focus on the connections I am making, and being excited about the new people that I'm encountering or somebody that I've reconnected. Not that, it's not like I'm just making it all positive and forgetting about this other side of it. But I think in my mind, I don't know about you, but I've just noticed I tend to be kind of paranoid. And so if I go to Milonga and there's somebody there that I typically dance with and they don't want to dance with me that night, and I'm looking their way and they're ignoring me, or they obviously don't take up the opportunity to capaceo me, even though I'm making myself available. And I can sort of take that and run with it and make my whole night about, what did I do wrong? What's wrong with me? How come? Did I say something? Am I somehow falling short of what they expect? Or and depending on whether it's technical or interpersonal, like there was this one time that somebody asked in the community, in the tango community, asked me for a favor, and I couldn't go through with it. Like, I couldn't help. I felt so bad. And when I saw this person at the Milonga the next time, I was convinced they were upset at me and that they wouldn't want to dance with me anymore. Like, it was bizarre to admit to myself that I had so much paranoia about it, but I did. I just was so convinced that they're mad at me, and that's why they're not making eye contact with me. They don't want to even talk with me. And, more often than not, when I'm in that state, I'm more and more realizing it sort of makes me have tunnel vision, like horses with the blinders. You put the blinders on, you only see this thing that's in front of you. And it's all about this kind of black and white thinking, and super negative and super just self-destructive too, because it makes you sort of shut down. But then that person that night, actually, as I'm sitting there at the table, convinced, I'm not even trying, I'm just sort of sitting there, and this person's sitting over there, and I'm like, I'm not even going to try to capaceo them. And then they capaceoed me. And I was like, what? Oh, they're not mad at me. Oh my God. It was such a realization. But how much of what we experience as this like guilt and suffering inside about certain people, how much of that is just us being paranoid, right? Like, that's a question for me. And it's funny where the mind goes. I don't know why. Sometimes I'm more prone to absurd thoughts than before. Like, one time at a festival, I was convinced that somebody stole my shoes because they didn't like me. Isn't that funny? I mean, the situation was that my shoes were missing. I didn't know where they were. And my mind just went to this darkest place, that somebody must dislike me so much that they're going to steal my shoes. And I got to tell you, I was just appalled at my own imagination, but sort of like acknowledging, yeah, we all have these really strange fears and feelings about being wrong or not being liked. And it's understandable, that's just part of our experience. So I encourage you to maybe watch that in yourself. And if there are people that you just obviously you've moved on and you don't want to necessarily be around them as much, or you don't want to dance with them, it's up to you how much of that you respect and how much you compromise. But ultimately, sometimes I remind people that, when you dance with somebody and you don't want to dance with them, you're dancing with them because you feel like you have to. You're robbing them of an experience of dancing with somebody who really wants to dance with them. So in certain ways, when you reject a capaseo, or you let somebody know that you don't really feel like dancing with them, you're doing them a favor, like you're doing them a favor because you are opening up the possibility for them to have a better time with somebody else. And the whole notion of like technique and level is super subjective as well. And I hope that I don't come across as if I'm judgmental of people who don't work on their dance. There's a lot of that sentiment in the community about how dancers, especially in the States, or leaders, they don't take classes, they don't get better. And there's a lot of frustration about that. And that might be the case. But I also am very aware of that people will be their own dancers, and certain dancers just don't care to take classes. And you got to respect that, I'm not going to fault somebody for being happy with where they're at and not feeling moved by the social pressure of getting better. However, at the same time, they have to understand that if I don't dance with them because mechanically, technically, it doesn't feel good to me, or it doesn't match where I want my partner to be, like that's also on limit in the same instant, right? Like I can say no on those grounds, right? So I hope that encourages you. Now, I want to finish this discussion by talking about a scenario that you also might be familiar with, which is you're on the receiving end of the cold shoulder. Like, that you used to dance with somebody and that person doesn't want to dance with you anymore. What if you do know that you've pissed somebody off and they don't want to dance with you? You hurt somebody's feelings, the relationship changed. So some sort of interpersonal reason that you understand why that person might not want to dance with you. Or there's a technical aspect to it where you can tell that somebody is beyond your level, or is interested in a different style of dancing, or just kind of has a different approach to tango than you. And so that decides for them that they don't want to dance with you. And you're aware of that. You're aware of that feeling. That's happening. What do you do? I think that it's a rite of passage for every dancer to have at least one, if not many, many, many experiences like that, where you can tell that someone doesn't prefer you anymore. And it's okay. It's okay to feel that. That's kind of what I've decided for myself. Because especially when there's a little bit of, when you're prone to paranoia the way I am, it's so easy to just get so enveloped in this fear of, what does that mean that somebody doesn't want to dance with me anymore? That person used to dance with me, but not anymore. And you know that for a fact. It's not just like a fear. And again, it's very subjective. And even as I'm thinking about examples of this happening for me, because there's been many, I realize that I'm only interpreting it the best way I know how. I don't know the real reasons why somebody doesn't want to dance with me anymore. And sometimes they might not want to dance with me because I'm doing something to give that impression to them. That also happens. But again, I just come back to this feeling like not everybody has to like me. Not everybody has to want to dance with me. And of course, if you're coming at it from a place of scarcity, like, oh, that person is the best dancer in town and they used to dance with me and now they don't, that can feel really harsh and limiting. But again, the reality is, over a long period of time, tango is very cyclical. And this person doesn't want to dance with you right now, but it doesn't mean that they are not going to dance with you later. If you know that it's technical, you can do something about it. You know, I do know a friend of mine who kind of had this realization, and for her, she just used it as fuel to work on her tango. And it really paid off. But when I find out that somebody doesn't want to dance with me or somebody is not really interested in connecting with me at the milonga, like most of the time, it doesn't really register for me anymore. I don't care. Plain and simple, I don't care. Because you know what? There are just so many other dancers out there to connect with, even when you feel like it's super limited, even in a small community. Like, if I take responsibility for how I'm feeling and look for opportunities to prove to myself that tango is limitless, like, I will find that. So these days, it's very rare that somebody's cold shoulder is really going to bother me. But when it does, I come back to that responsibility for myself, right? That it's like, first of all, you don't know for sure why you're getting the cold shoulder. You might be imagining it. Secondly, let's say you are getting cold shoulder. It's okay. There are so many other dancers to discover. There's so many other experiences that you might not even know exist because you're focusing so much on this thing over here and you're making it bigger than it needs to be. And thirdly, if it matters to you that much, know that there is a way to address the problem. Like, if you know it's technical specifically, or if you know it's something to do with just getting on that person's radar again, like, there are things you can do. Whatever route we end up deciding to take on this journey as we experience these things. So, whatever level you're at, there's always going to be these situations that are uncomfortable, and you make connections and you break apart. And sometimes you're on the receiving end of it and you messed up and you had a conflict with somebody and they don't want to talk to you. Whatever the action is in the moment that we take to take care of ourselves, to make ourselves feel better, to make it work, to move on, I think the most important thing is to remain open-minded and to place these experiences in the context of a long period of time, like years and years, because this is a lifetime activity, tango is, and you're going to be in the tango community as a dancer for decades, and things change. So just because somebody is one way right now doesn't mean they're going to stay this way forever. So just like that experience of having to let people go for good reasons sometimes, we have this influx of other people always at the ready. There's always other people that can come on our horizon and sort of confront us with new experiences. And I want to close by sharing this little anecdote of this happening just the other night for me because there's a dancer that I find kind of like very intimidating, I guess, because they're over there with their fancy dancers over there, and they're such a beautiful dancer, and there's like all this energy, always looking really good, and I always feel kind of inadequate around them. So I tend to have this aloofness around them. Like I say hello, but I don't really try to penetrate their circle because I just feel like I'm not cool enough, you know. But this particular night, I ended up not really dancing very much. And I was kind of looking for ways to stay present because I was a little bored. So I started taking pictures, and I ended up in this kind of spur of the moment, I ended up taking a picture of them from sort of from where I was sitting. And it ended up being a really funny picture. And I shared this picture later. And from that picture, we ended up having this amazing conversation where we had like a meaningful interaction, letting down our guard and actually connecting. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, what an incredible difference it made, that one simple act, going from me just sitting there bored and maybe feeling a little upset that I'm not dancing as much as I want to, or that I don't like the music, and kind of getting on that track that there's not enough dancers that I like to dance with. There's nobody here. You know, that was all available. And that was reinforced by my belief that this particular person as well is somebody off limits to me, and I'm not really even good enough to talk to them, right? It's very high school, I think. So from that, for me to just shift my mind and do something different, and doing something kind of playful, kind of like not thought through. I saw them from a distance and I was like, oh my God, that's such a great picture. And I took the picture. That act to me was my choice to stay open-minded in that moment, that critical decision point where I chose to go into the side of open-mindedness, what I call open-mindedness. I'm sure there's other words to describe it, but it's just this feeling of like, I'm not going to close off to the possibility just yet, just because this person I perceive as being, you know, so cool and so far away from me. And I'm just like this lowly middle schooler, you know, it's like I'm in middle school and they're in high school. That's like the feeling. Just because I felt that way didn't mean that I needed to fully commit to that script. I could just do something outside of my character right now, something that is inspiring and out of the blue and playful, and something that focuses my energy on other people, other things that are going on that are positive. This was very much my choice to do that. And it yielded this other experience that was completely unexpected. And suddenly I am in this place of like, I'm actually connecting with somebody that I never thought I would ever connect with. And I know I've known this person for years, but always like from a distance. And of course, I've talked about, I've had other experiences of the opposite as well, especially last year. I've had some major letting go of certain connections. So the point is here, ladies and gentlemen, is that this feeling is universal, that we all fear not being desired, that we'll experience these situations with people who trigger certain feelings that don't make much sense. And that's okay. I think that's what tango, as a community, as a space, as a social space, is good for, because it allows us to deal with those issues head on. It kind of pushes us to confront them. You can't like escape. They're happening right there. That person that you really hate is right there at the Malanga. What are you going to do? Whereas in normal life, you could just ignore them, right? So I hope that this episode gives you a little bit of respite from feeling too ashamed or too guilty for having these kinds of feelings. And I would love to hear how this has landed for you, and if there's anything else that you would like to add to the discussion. As always, you're invited to join my private community on Facebook, where I go live every week on Fridays, and we discuss these kinds of topics in a live situation. So I would love for you to join the Facebook group. I hope you have a wonderful week ahead, and we will banter next week. Ciao.